Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, my fellow spooky decks of tarot cards. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and today we are talking about the currently final season. We've got one more to go, but it's not out yet. Of What We Do in the Shadows, FX's edgy vampire pseudo-documentary TV series.
We've done episodes on every season up to this one. So if you want our opinions on those, go watch those episodes.
Yes. This is about season 5.
Yes.
Before we get into it, we need to talk about what's cool. That'll be Harmony, On the Tip of Your Tongue, Destru City KTL, Passion Killer 711, Rob, and a guy from Ohio who uses his position as someone cool to pay us to watch this show.
And so we do. And going into the end of last season, it was a little downbeat. Last season wasn't my fave.
No.
But short spoiler-free review, this season was real fun and good.
Yeah, I hesitate to call it my favorite for a number of reasons.
I think 3 is still my favorite because 3 was the season that made me like this show.
Yeah, but it's up there. It's really good. There's not Wikipedia summaries of each episode like there have been before.
It's because it's the brand newest season. You can click through to get the summaries of each episode, but I kind of remember what they're about. I just watched it pretty recently.
Yeah, I was a couple of weeks ago, and my memory is like our current president. It loves ice cream. So yeah, is there any other preamble we have to do? Any more song and dance, pomp and circumstance? Oh yeah!
You too can be cool like a guy from Ohio, and if you pay, what is the tier for this? $15?
$15 for 6 hours or less of television. I haven't set up the other tiers yet because nobody's asking. So,
and you can make us watch stuff. 6 hours or less, we'll give it a watch and do a podcast about it.
Yep.
So, we'll start off with episode 1. This one's called The Mall. Actually, I kind of want to start off talking about the overall season, because this season was really good about having, like, a big overall, like, arcing plot throughout the whole season, and a little B-plot throughout the whole season as well, that both actually come to fruition in the finale. Or rather, the episode before the finale, and the finale is about, like, the fallout from that. I really like it. At the end of last season, Guillermo de la Cruz, the long-suffering familiar / bodyguard of the vampires, who the show is ostensibly about, mostly Nandor the Relentless, finally got tired of being put off and mocked and treated as a bag of crap about the thing he actually wanted from being the familiar situation, which was to be turned into a vampire. And he went and he found his vampire friend, who isn't a weirdo, who rather is a weirdo, but is not the same.
Weirdo,
yeah, it's not the same kind of weirdo. And just paid him money to turn him into a vampire, which I thought was an incredibly baller move. Turns out it didn't go so well.
Yes, as is revealed over the course of the season, he has drank no human blood,
and his lineage related to Van Helsing is fighting off the vampire transformation, and since he hasn't drank any human blood, the vampire transformation isn't able to overpower that, so he spends the majority of this season as like a kind of a half vampire situation, and I'm gonna be honest, I'd have stuck with that. He was getting a lot of the upsides of being a vampire and none of the downsides. Why would you not just why would you not just stick there?
because he wanted to be a vampire.
Or so he thought.
Well, right. And by the time he realized that, it was too late.
But We start off here. The mall is where we get it. Where it's revealed that that's happened. That he's not exactly a vampire yet, despite having done that at the end of the last season. A bunch of the episode is a flashback to how that had gone. And then the vampires are mostly doing fun hijinks at the shopping mall as like your comedy bit for the episode.
Well, he finds out also over the course of this episode that it would be the most gratuitous slap in the face in vampire culture to go out and get turned by somebody who isn't your master if you are a familiar.
Like, to the extent of if you are a vampire and your familiar goes out and gets basically turning cucks you, you kill them and then yourself. Is the commonly accepted proper thing to do, which is fun and is clearly something that they thought up for this season because it hadn't been mentioned at all until now, and it's definitely something that probably would have been brought up. But at the same time, I don't care because it really makes sense for these characters to have never told Guillermo that.
Well, and it's not like, as with most things, it's not like they, were keeping information from him. They just didn't think about it.
They're vampires. They're dumb.
They've been around for so long that time is worthless to them.
So it just never occurred to them to tell him that because they never assumed, they never assume any level of agency from a familiar. So they don't assume a familiar would ever do that. So they don't tell him not to.
Right.
like how I don't tell my toaster not to get up and go fight the neighbors. Like I don't feel like I need to tell my toaster that.
I appreciate that because I've been trying to get our toaster to get up and go fight the neighbors for some time now.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work.
Okay. So Guillermo finds out that this turning is starting to happen. He goes to the glasses store to get new glasses and discovers he doesn't need glasses anymore. So he gets fake glasses to keep up appearances, but is is excited that his powers are finally showing up. This was fine.
Yeah, fun. Mm-hmm. Good setting the table for stuff that'll happen later in the season.
Episode 2, A Night Out with the Guys. I think this is the one where Nadja is trying to find a place to belong.
Yeah, she is... Well, actually, I think... Did we set up the hex in the first episode?
Maybe, but it would have been really toward the end.
Or maybe in the first episode, maybe in this episode. Nadja finds out she has a terrible hex on her from, Antipaxos, her homeland. There is some hex that is ruining her life. Clearly, it's not her own decisions. I believe this is in the first episode because she has, a speech about it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right.
And so she goes to Little Antipaxos, neighborhood which has definitely been there the whole time in Staten Island, and just no one ever told her because she never asked. Again, much like the familiar thing, you never asked, so I never told you. And she's making friends with the local Antipaxans, and then Laszlo and Nandor spend the majority of the episode chilling out with Sean's friends and getting into hijinks.
Nandor is very jealous of Laszlo's ability to smooth talk, and Laszlo is very jealous of Nandor's ability to successfully hypnotize anyone without rotting their brain.
Yeah, I forget. Was it established early on that Laszlo... I can't remember if it was established early on that Laszlo is really good at hypnosis, and this is contradicting that, or if it was established early on that he's actually really bad at hypnosis.
Yeah, season 1, he's terrible.
That's
he's
right.
Absolutely terrible.
I knew it was established one of those two. I just couldn't remember which.
And the fact that the neighbor friend is so dumb because he's hypnotized him too many times. He's just kind of worthless and goes with the flow.
He's got the brain scramblies.
I think this is the season where the guide actually joins the main cast. She's got a title credit.
Yeah, she went from being a side character to being one of the gang. So she would believe.
And I'm sorry, I clicked through to the episode summary. Did you mention about how the whole curse thing is bullshit?
That's revealed much later.
It is, but it's foreshadowed in this episode.
Yes.
I picked up on it anyway. That the guide is just trying to make friends with Nadja and the rest of the group, and
They're assholes.
They are.
So...
Also, she's fucking weird and overdoes everything in a very vampire way.
Yeah, like, she's not great, and also, they're all assholes.
You know those TikToks or Facebook shorts or YouTube shorts or Instagram reels that are people making fun of a certain subculture that they probably belong to, that are usually like, you know, overly attached or lol, I'm so random or whatever, and they go too far with it to like drive home the joke? Mm-hmm. That's who she is.
The guy is very earnest, and in this season, she's very... She really wants to be part of the gang, so she's very earnestly trying to do that.
She's also a really old vampire and a fucking psychopath. So,
As are all vampires.
Sure.
I like that they established that's a normal thing for vampires to do, is they get very cliquey, and they don't let other new vampires into the group very easily. I like that. I like that they established that that's just a thing vampires will do.
This was a pretty decent one. I like that every time Nandor tried to lie and create a false scenario, it was the same series of shitty delaying tactics.
Yes, Nandor is very bad at any sort of non-hypnosis in this episode, and that makes the payoff of him being really good at hypnosis amazing.
At the end of the episode, Laszlo confronts Guillermo about his secret. Guillermo confesses he had Derek, his weird friend, turned him into a vampire. Laszlo thought he had intestinal issues, but promises not to tell Nandor.
Because, again, the murder-suicide that would result.
Episode 3, Pride Parade. The neighbor dude is trying to run for comptroller.
Yeah, it's one of those tiny local government positions that you don't really know what it does. They do explain it briefly in the episode, but it's basically, I think they explain it as the person who controls the budget.
They supervise the quality of accounting and financial reporting of an organization.
So they're the guy who watches the accountant. So it's this tiny, very insignificant, ultimately political position, but he's running for it, and he really wants the gay vote. So he goes to his local house of gays, which is who he thinks the vampires are, because he's right.
Yeah, it's not inaccurate. They're all fucking each other all the time.
And so he goes to get their help, and they don't help very well.
No, especially because Laszlo gets obsessed with trying to figure out why Guillermo doesn't have powers yet, and then discovers he can use his sweat as, like, sun armor, so he goes to the beach.
To hang out on the beach during daytime, which he presumably hasn't done in, centuries. Because Guillermo's sweat is daywalker cream.
There's a subplot here that I thought was going to be really fucking annoying, but I actually liked it a lot, which was Nadja's ghost that is haunting a doll really wants to have real people sex, and also her legs broke and they got replaced by crappy dancing Santa legs. So the guide does a ritual to swap their bodies, and she's trying to go out and hoe it up, and it's not working well. Colin Robinson gets involved. Eventually, Colin Robinson and the ghost end up in the same Nadja body, and they sing a duet of It's Raining Men at the end of the episode.
I also thought this was going to be a really annoying subplot, and it ended up being hilarious.
This is also the one where Nandor is convinced he could fly to space. He's so good at flying, and then he's right.
I love that he's right. I love that this, and also this serves as great foreshadowing, because throughout the whole season, well, most of the season, Laszlo's trying to help Guillermo turn into a vampire or cure his vampirism or something to get him out of this jam, because Laszlo actually does like his friends and also really likes to feel smart. And he's always bad and wrong and not very good at the mad vampire science he does. And that's foreshadowed here because he's like, no, vampires can't actually fly that high. We can only fly as high as the lowest cloud, which is like old vampire lore. And Nandor's like, I can fly to space. In a very over-the-top friend who does over-the-top braggadocio kind of thing. And then he's just right. He flies to space.
It's just a good... Nandor had a rough couple of seasons, and he's doing pretty well in this one. So I'm
Honestly,
happy for
this
him.
is probably my favorite Nandor season.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. We move on to the campaign. Because the weird gay pride parade went terribly.
No, actually. The weird gay pride parade apparently went well. Because he had 9 DUIs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sean, the neighbor, had to bow out of being the comptroller. So Colin Robinson steps in because low-level politics is an excellent way to drain people of their life force.
Let's see. B plot here is... Oh, wow, there's 2 of them. Nandor meets a friend at the gym who is Jewish and decides he wants to prove that he is also Jewish so they can be better friends.
Oof, yeah, that's a way of putting that.
And, look, I don't want to invite the Silent Hill crowd into this video.
Woo!
And, I can't... Laszlo is trying to get in good with the anti-Paxons and fails like 4 times in a row.
He actually fails so hard, he convinces them that he is an immortal spirit of idiocy known as like the Pig Idiot King or some shit like that. And they end up loving him. Because they believe he is a spirit of complete buffoonery and incompetence.
But yeah, the main plot is Colin Robinson getting in with other energy vampires, and
In this episode, we find out there is a reveal that there is a Supreme Council of Energy Vampires, which is fun because Colin Robinson was on the regular Vampire Council also, and apparently didn't know about the Energy Vampire Council. Colin Robinson really knows nothing about being an energy vampire.
it seems like the energy vampires themselves are sort of...
Yeah, they're just sort of making it up as they go along. Great Hannibal Buress appearance in this.
Honestly, I really liked the Energy Vampire Council. It was a really tedious bit that was hard to sit through, but that was the point.
This is a great example. This is actually a great thing. This is the episode where I had to go find an extension that lets me speed up video on things that aren't YouTube.
No.
Because on YouTube, I can do that. Because I pay for YouTube. But on other video sites, a lot of them will hide that, and I know the video player can do it. So I went and downloaded a Firefox extension to let me do it to get through this scene and a scene in, I think, the next episode? Yes, the next episode. Which there's one subplot in the next episode that comes up, at least in the last couple seasons, and I hate it.
Well, there's no reason to belabor things. Nandor does not keep his friend. That's the resolution.
Because he shows him his commitment, and it doesn't go well.
Also, because of commitments being shown, Colin Robinson doesn't get to be comptroller, which he did on purpose. He didn't want to be comptroller.
So he newly got together with his terrible ex, whom he loves, the emotional drain vampire. I don't remember her name.
I've already clicked away from the page. It's a mystery.
And she takes over and becomes comptroller because the Council of Energy Vampires has told them they need to win because bureaucracy keeps them fed, which I think is very funny.
And his opponent wants to clear away bureaucracy, the non-vampire.
Yeah, I think that's a very funny and apt joke. Yep. Good job.
Yep, very good. Very good. This is told half through a news broadcast. Hence why it is called local news.
This is 2 bits that I hate coming together into one final bit that I fucking thought was really funny.
I was nervous because I didn't... The last time they did a gimmick episode like this, I did not care for it. And that was the Go Flip Yourself episode last season. This one was a lot better. They're reporting on a sinkhole that opened up on the street?
A water main
broke. And they're just kind of dealing with all that BS. And the vampires keep accidentally revealing themselves as vampires to everybody on the news.
Which doesn't matter because it's local news and no one's watching.
Right.
But they don't understand that as vampires. So the A plot is them freaking out.
I thought this was really funny because it's an excellent metaphor for the way we all kind of do this. To take it to a serious example, so I'm not sitting here thinking for 10 minutes. When you're like, oh, everybody's going to notice the huge zit on my face, but nobody notices the huge zit on your face because they're not fucking looking at you like that. But you can't stop thinking about it, and you're sure this zit has ruined the entire night. That is essentially what these vampires have done. They said stuff that makes them look like weirdos, but no one is ever going to go, proof of vampires.
Yeah, they're not going to think you're correct. I've been alive for centuries. No one, they're just going to think you're crazy.
Yeah, they're going to make a meme song out of you and then move on with their lives.
Yeah, that would have been a fun payoff also.
Yeah.
That happens later in the season.
It sure does.
But I didn't like this because it was mostly comedy that is a bunch of people yelling at each other, and that can go one of two ways for me, either really funny or very tiresome.
I don't think it got to either.
For you, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
it was just sort of, this is alright.
And then the B plot is Guillermo trying to say goodbye to his mother because he is going to turn into a vampire soon.
And because they're all crazy Van Helsings, he can't be around them.
Yeah. Once he's a vampire enough, they'll freak out and try and kill him. And I'm going to be honest, I hated this. I hated this whole plot. His brother, Guillermo's brother, is like an actor I recognize, but I don't remember the name of. He does a really good job playing an insufferable fucking asshole.
I don't feel like finding it.
And
yeah, he does. I don't like that character at all.
Like, I don't want to... It's to use an ancient term, it's X-Pac heat. It's go-away heat. I don't dislike him and want to see something bad happen to him. I dislike him and don't want to watch the show when he's there. He does an excellent job playing a snaky, shitty, awful person to be at a family reunion with who just snipes at you all the time. I know people like that. I don't fucking hang out with them. And I don't like watching shows about them. So I fast forwarded through most of this. So I have... And I have cliff notes of what happened, but I wasn't paying much attention, and it was going at like 2 times speed.
I did like Guillermo's mom in this, and there was a little sting at the end where his brother or cousin, whoever this guy is talking to the mom about, like, what was all that about? And she's like, I don't know, he's been doing this like once a week for the last month. I'm really worried about him, but...
He'll be back next week.
He'll be back next week. I mean, you know.
That is a good moment to chime in. Guillermo is a character who... I get that the comedic bit about Guillermo is he's kind of a fucking bitch. He's kind of a...
In that he's a pushover.
Yeah, he's kind of a pushover. He's kind of a spineless wimp. I get that. But he will occasionally have bursts of character development where he's, overcome that, or he's, developing a spine for himself. And then it seems like at the beginning of every season, he just completely regresses to this spineless wimp from season 1 in one way or another. And it happens again this season, and at
this point, it's happened so much that it's more of his character trait than this being character development.
Yeah, his character trait is he will find his balls for about half a week and then lose them again.
Some people are just like that. I've certainly known a few in real life. Urgent care. So because of all the dumb booby traps Colin Robinson put in the house...
No.
It wasn't because of that.
No. In his continued effort to try and help Guillermo either become a vampire or cure his vampirism, Laszlo is never really clear on what he's trying to do.
Research.
His very important scientific research. He determines that Guillermo can probably fly.
Because he injects his blood inside of frogs who grow small Guillermo hair and can fly.
And he's right, turns out. He basically goads Guillermo into jumping off a high thing because, no, you need to panic. It has to be a thing where you have to fly because that's what's going to motivate you to actually figure it out. And Guillermo flies for about half a second and then falls, and his ankle breaks so hard his foot's pointing the wrong way around. And Laszlo laughs and goes, yeah, it's how we all learn, and then walks away.
Well, because, for a vampire, that'll heal.
Yep.
But
Guillermo's not quite a vampire, so...
Well, and, Nadja finds him, I think, and this is when she finds out about it, and takes him to the veterinary hospital to get him fixed. And this is when Colin Robinson has stories that are too interesting. So he's having a hard time feeding. He's got a bruise that he's been covering up because...
Apparently something about having a black eye renders all of his incredibly boring stories very interesting.
Yeah, so Nandor tries to help him to get food, and he ends up in a series of more and more interesting situations.
Which makes him weaker and weaker.
Including talking to actor John Slattery for a while, which was a BoJack Horseman level cameo. Not flattering to the actor at all, but so well performed
that it's flattering to the actor by way of their lack of ego.
Yeah.
You were
brilliant.
willing to pretend this is you.
There's a part where he goes on about his accent and gets really...
actory about it.
Really pretentious and a little bit pedantic about trying to mimic him. And he actually does a really good job of it, which is also great. It's just funny. The end. No, that's the B plot. Like, Colin Robinson saves the day at a grocery store. He's got a viral video on TikTok
of him hopping with a foot that John Slattery ran over. It's a lot and it's fun, but it's mostly just like a series of little vignettes.
But the main plot is Nadja trying to fight all these people who are like, hey, your familiar seems to be turning into a vampire. We're going to have to kill him. It's a big fight with a doctor, and they have to escape.
I like that it's part of an ongoing bit, too, because you see right before, like when they come in, the doctor is advocating putting one familiar down because they have a cold.
Yeah.
And then Guillermo comes in with a broken leg. He's like, we should put him down. He might break the other leg. You never know.
Yeah.
I like that bit, but then the doctor gets like, he's really serious about it when he finds out that Guillermo's been turned into a vampire and is some sort of weird half-vampire freak. And again, showing that despite what, them being assholes, once you are their friend, they will go to bat for you. Nadja fights, fights half the entirety of the veterinary hospital and the veterinarian vampire himself to save Guillermo.
And to fall back on our previous point, I think perhaps Guillermo just has anxiety. Because when he's all hopped up on sedatives here, he is being so honest. He is being so sassy. There is nothing that is held back like it is through the rest of the series when he doesn't have his moments of bravery. He's being 100% Guillermo without having to overthink every single thing that occurs. So perhaps that's the character through line, and they're doing a great job of that. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps I don't like it because I also have anxiety, and I don't like seeing that portrayed very accurately. It makes me feel seen in a way I don't like.
Hybrid Creatures might be my favorite episode. Probably is.
That's understandable.
Of this season.
That's understandable.
The experiments that Laszlo's been doing with various animals and Guillermo's blood has turned the various animals into small manimals. And
they're amazing. They're all amazing. All of their personalities are amazing. I particularly like the dog one.
And further trying to get rid of her hex through a series of events that end up with Colin Robinson and Nandor becoming teachers of anti-Paxons trying to get acclimated to America, and Nadja working for a teacher who is pretending to be a powerful witch who can remove her hex
for the purposes of extorting donuts from Nadja. From
a specific donut store that she has been banned from through Nadja.
This side character, this one episode side character is the most interesting fucking person who's introduced this season.
Our last scene with her is she is being like fucking fed donuts in flagrante delicto almost on the counter of this donut
repose, store. Focused in her lane, donutted, flourishing.
Colin Robinson and Nandor end up going to a museum where there's like a lot of Nandor's clothes and personal belongings that he lost when he came over to America on display.
And the historians have really, really done him dirty. They have written up a really unflattering portrait. A comedically unflattering portrait of who this person who had these clothes is. And that's a funny bit.
I appreciated that Colin Robinson went to bat and went back and stole all of Nandor's stuff back and then made him look like a real cool hero.
Yeah, and I love that it was a payoff to Colin Robinson's earlier bit, where, again, one of the best ways to drain people of their life energy is to be a cool teacher, which, again, excellent work. And then it's a payoff because when he does go into the museum and change all the stories around, he goes, yeah, man, whatever, fuck it. History's a concept. It's fine. It's a construct. Who cares? Which is his cool teacher bit. It was just a little bit of comedic hack that I like.
Yeah, it was very good. But Guillermo does not kill the horrible abominations, as Laszlo suggests, and instead sends them to work at an old folks' home as support animals, which was kind, and I liked that. This was just fucking goofy, ridiculous shit.
Except the fish one, who he kept.
Yes, he did keep the Seaman. I say that because he looked like the character in the game Seaman.
Also, kind of looked like a seaman.
Well, that's just disgusting.
Did.
The roast was better than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be a whole episode that was a roast. Laszlo taps out, just
completely goes non-responsive. He responds to all things with, yes, very good, thank you. And everyone has their own theory as to what might be the reason, but he's just not engaged with anything.
My personal favorite was they brought up the whole Colin Robinson bit from last season. And he's like, he keeps talking about, I keep having these dreams about him being my dad and changing my diaper and stuff. And they're like, yeah, that happened. And he's like, no, that would...
I'm pretty sure I would remember that.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he's sad.
All actually, mostly pretty normal, pretty that could actually be the reasons. We are led to believe as an audience that it's actually because he can't figure out Guillermo's deal and is, not okay with that. Because, again, Laszlo likes to feel smart, even though he is very stupid.
The guide, in one of the moments of why nobody likes the guide within the house, exposes that Guillermo is the one who killed the Baron, well, almost killed him, and that his bloodline is descended from Van Helsing. And the Baron is like, man, fuck this guy.
The Baron goes, you guys kind of forgot I'm like Dracula, huh? And then goes full Dracula and tries to chase Guillermo down.
It is a lot of back and forth in plot development. A pretty decent episode where people move and grow and change and learn. And but the Baron gets crispy again.
Which is good. Because
not as crispy.
No, but still, it's funner. It's a funner look. And even he's happier because he looks scary again.
Yeah. But I was glad we had some stuff with the Baron. I'm glad a certain cursed hat never came into play in this season. That was nice.
Well, I mean, the hat was blown up.
Was it?
Sure. The hat will be back.
The hat will be back.
The hat will be back.
To close things
Simon
out.
the Devious will return.
Yeah.
This is one of the many episodes that loops in more and more people on the Guillermo vampire cucked Nandor.
Including the Baron, who's then like, what, that happened? Oh, never mind. I don't even want to fight you anymore. I'm going to let him kill you.
That's hilarious. I love it. That's a terrible thing to do. You're an awful person. Go, slay queen. I'm going to go.
We discover at the end that Laszlo was just trying to figure out how to best organize their book collection, and he came to a conclusion.
Which is an excellent button on that.
Sure. As someone with the ADHD, I've been in a similar hole. So I get it. Weekend at Morrigan Manor.
Very fun episode.
Yeah. They do a great job of making you feel kind of bad for the guide before they remind you that she's a terrible fucking person.
Like all of them.
Yeah, like all of them. But they go to an escape room house that the guide has set up based on an actual famous vampire who is not at home.
The guide invites them to her art gallery to see all the paintings she's worked very hard on recently. And they all are clearly going to blow her off, and suddenly she remembers that they have mail from this very famous vampire. She tricks them into this house under false pretenses, and then proceeds to, like a serial killer, go and provide each of them one last opportunity to treat her with any amount of kindness, and when they don't, she gets them.
She locks them in a special cage, so they have to stay there. And
Yeah, like a pure silver cage that they don't have the keys to, so none of them can escape. And she's like, "You're gonna spend forever here. You're gonna spend the rest of your immortal lives here, thinking about what a shitbag you were to me." Wow. And this is also the episode where Nandor finally finds out about Guillermo, and he's as mad as everyone said he was going to be.
Yeah. I was willing to accept that, and why would I care?
Yeah, there were really two options. It's either as mad as everyone said, or I don't care.
This was a really good episode.
Yeah.
This is where it comes out that the hex was not a thing. It was just the guy trying to become friends with Nadja.
Guillermo is the only one who isn't got because he's the only one who's nice to the guide.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is basically just there's only one plot in this episode, and I liked it. Final episode of the season is, appropriately, Exit Interview. Patton Oswalt
is amazing in this episode. He shows up as Patton Oswalt, and is kidnapped by, befriends, and is summarily killed by Nandor over the course of the episode.
He's talking through the whole situation with Guillermo and how he's really torn because he is like his best friend, but also he committed this grievous sin against him. You know, is it worth it to forgive that? Do you even actually care? Is this something cultural you've, built adopted?
Is it important to you, or is it important, or do you think it should be important to you?
Or were you told it was important to you?
Yeah.
He gives really good advice, and
in a fit of annoyance, Nandor throws him off a roof and kills him.
And that's like the final thing that Nandor is like, I miss my friend, my new friend. I miss Guillermo. And then is like, I gotta go make up with the guy.
And they agree to make up. And I like this episode and the end of the last one, because despite all of Laszlo's work, Nandor just immediately knows what the deal is. I like that. That's a cool thing for Nandor to get, which is that no one can figure out why Guillermo isn't turning, and Nandor immediately is like, "Yeah, you morons, he's Van Helsing. His Van Helsing blood is fighting his vampire blood," and he's just right.
And that he never had blood.
Yeah, and then when they finally bury the hatchet and agree to Guillermo's going to join the house as an equal, as another vampire. They're like, well, he's not a vampire yet, and Nandor's like, yeah, you never tried the most obvious solution: have him drink human blood. And there's a wonderful moment where I think it's Colin Robinson goes, "Did you never try that? Shut up."
Yeah.
Just an amazing joke.
Like the other two were they didn't think about it because obviously that was the first thing Laszlo would have done.
Guillermo becomes a proper vampire. He relishes his vampire power for a moment, and they all go hunting. And once again, Guillermo has found his balls for about half a day, and he loses them again.
I don't know if this is a thing about balls necessarily. I think this is Guillermo, the romantic ideal of something that you wanted and then being confronted with the reality of it, which is really a through line of this show.
Yeah, I agree.
Vampires are so cool and awesome, but then their everyday is really stupid.
And I don't get me wrong, I think it's a good storyline decision. It doesn't make me like the character of Guillermo de la Cruz more, because he's been party to so many other murders. Lacking the spine to do one himself for what is supposedly his dream is a little pathetic.
Well, it is supposedly his dream. It is the romantic ideal of what he wanted, but the reality isn't actually what he wanted. Because there was never a part, when most people talk about, I want to be a vampire, they talk about, ooh, they're dark and sexy and they have magic powers. And they're like, I can't wait to kill a lot of people. And often, we don't think about that.
Well, the traditional narrative for vampires who are protagonists in fiction is that they are torn by the fundamental, the fundamental murderousness of their existence.
A lot of the protagonist ones, yeah.
I get why Guillermo doesn't want to do that, but that he has essentially lured in and baited and allowed so many people to be killed over the course of 12 years or whatever. to flinch at this final hurdle is understandable and a good character decision and makes me like him less.
That's very interesting to me, and I would love to dive deeper into that, but we're already well over time, so we don't need to go on any further. I don't think it makes me like him anymore. It's just that sounds in character.
Absolutely, I agree. It sounds perfectly in character. I also like that Nandor knew this would happen.
Yeah.
And it's implied that he's so calm and competent suddenly. It's implied that Nandor always knew this would happen. It's why he's never turned him.
Well, and it goes back to 2 seasons ago when he and Guillermo fought, and he was like, okay, that was a test. And it sounds like something Nandor is saying that's bullshit, that's like, hey, stop fighting me, please don't kill me. But it makes it, this scene makes it sound more like it was a test. He thought he didn't have what it takes to be a vampire. And I don't mean you're not cool enough. I mean you don't want to kill and eat people.
You don't have the killer instinct.
So they put on a big fake ceremony about becoming a vampire that Guillermo believes is a real thing because nobody ever tells him anything about what any of this entails. And Nandor's like, all right, you have a choice here. You can become a vampire or you can kill Derek.
They don't tell Derek this.
No.
The ceremony partially exists as a giant ruse for Derek.
And ultimately, Guillermo doesn't want to be a vampire. And since he has no problem killing vampires,
he can't kill Derek. He's unable at the last moment to kill Derek either. So Nandor does it for him.
And big putting over of Nandor in this season.
Nandor came across like a real Chad in this season generally.
Which they mentioned. So when he started having the depression a couple seasons ago, Laszlo and Nadja were like, yeah, he does this every couple hundred years. He goes into this deep depression, does this and that, goes around, finds a girl to hook up with. That lasts for a little while. Then they break up and he gets really sad and he gets out of it and he's better than ever.
And they literally did that. He comes across pretty cool this whole season.
He feels like Nandor the Relentless.
He's good at hypnotizing. He can fly to space. He knows his familiar very well. He does cool vampire ruses. Nandor, best Nandor season.
Yeah. At the end of it, they take Derek's corpse back to Benedict Wong, who resurrects him as a zombie.
And then Derek goes to hang out with his new zombie pals. And that's the end of the season.
Laszlo's the one who takes him, which I thought was nice. Laszlo has had the most character growth of anyone in this show.
The most consistent character growth. Like, he's still a moron, but there's a great moment where, when they're all being imprisoned by the guy, the way they get out is Laszlo quotes the exact date and time of some footage the documentarians need, and it's just them all sitting around, all the vampires, talking about how great the guide is for a while when she's not there. And she's like, well, why don't you ever say this to my face? Because we're vampires. We're assholes.
Yep.
And then the stinger on that episode is they didn't mean any of that. They were all just trying to convince Colin Robinson to get together with the guide so they'll fuck off.
I thought that was kind of vague, even, the stinger. Because Colin suggests that as like what they're trying to do, but nobody cops to it.
No, but it's very much, no, we would never do that.
Maybe I wasn't watching close enough, but...
Or maybe I
feel like that was...
I saw an implication that wasn't there. Equally possible.
I like that it's vague. I will say that. Because you could be right, and I could be,
Or it could be that they meant all that, and they also really wanted him and her and Colin Robinson to fuck off.
Yeah. Man, I just thought of a really funny bit where I cut to credits and then afterward... Well, credits. It's the fucking static. And afterward, you and I have a conversation about how we hope the listener goes away or something, but they're really nice. But that's not good. We value each and every one of you, especially those of you who are cool.
Especially those of you who are still listening 40 minutes into a rambling review of a 5th season of a show.
There's not many of you. I can see the YouTube numbers.
But we appreciate you nonetheless.
And I will say, this has been a big movies month for podcasts. Next week should give us an uptick, but we have been watching a lot of stuff, and those are not our most popular videos. And I appreciate those of you who tune in, who watch all the way through. Drop us a comment if you have, because it helps people who do care about this kind of content find it. So thanks. And do you have any words of wisdom to share?
No.